Never say these things if you value your character. Words are not just sounds. They are not just communication. Words are the most precise window into who you actually are. Not who you claim to be. Not who you want people to think you are. But who you actually are, at the level of character, at the level of belief, at the level of what you have trained yourself to value. The Stoics understood this with frightening clarity. They believed that before a word ever leaves your mouth, it has already traveled through your beliefs, your fears, your insecurities, your values, and what comes out is a direct reflection of all of that. Which means every time you open your mouth and speak carelessly, you are not just saying words. You are revealing yourself. And here is the uncomfortable truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Some of the things we say most casually, most automatically, most habitually, are the very things that quietly destroy our character, our relationships, our reputation, and our inner peace. Not the dramatic words. Not the obvious ones. The everyday ones. The ones that slip out in conversation without a second thought. Today, we are going inside those words. We are going to examine them the way a Stoic would, with honesty, without flinching, without the comfortable lie that what we say doesn't matter. Because it does. Deeply. And by the time this is over, you are going to understand your own language in a way you never have before. Stay with me. The first thing. That's just how I am. There are few phrases more quietly dangerous than this one. 4 words. Completely ordinary. And they contain within them the decision to stop growing. That's just how I am. You say it when someone points out a pattern that hurts them. You say it when your behavior causes a problem. You say it when you are caught doing something you know, at some level, is not your best. And it sounds like honesty. It sounds like self-awareness. But it is actually the opposite. What you are saying, beneath those 4 words, is this: I have decided that who I am right now is fixed. I have decided that change is either impossible or not worth the effort. And I am asking you to accommodate me rather than expecting me to grow. The Stoics would have found this philosophy almost incomprehensible. Epictetus, who was born into slavery, who had no control over his circumstances, his body, his freedom, built an entire philosophy around the idea that the self is never fixed. That what you are right now is not what you are required to be tomorrow. He said, make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. What is in your power? Your thoughts. Your responses. Your habits. Your character. All of it is shapeable. All of it can be built, refined, improved. The moment you say that's just how I am, you are surrendering the most important battle you will ever fight, the battle to become someone worthy of the life you want. People of genuine character never say this. Not because they are perfect, but because they refuse to make their current limitations permanent by naming them as identity. What you say is what you believe. What you believe is what you become. Be careful what you claim as permanent. The second thing. I don't care what anyone thinks. This one is seductive. Because it sounds like confidence. It sounds like freedom. Like you have broken free from the prison of other people's opinions. Like you are finally, gloriously your own person. But let's be honest about what it usually is. Most of the time, when people say I don't care what anyone thinks, they are either lying, and are in fact deeply affected by what people think, or they have confused indifference with strength. True freedom from the need for approval is one of the most difficult and powerful achievements in human life. The Stoics pursued it with great seriousness. But here is what they understood that the casual, I don't care, statement misses entirely. There is a profound difference between not needing everyone's approval and having no regard for how your actions affect others. A person of genuine character cares deeply about acting with integrity, not because they need others to see it, but because they hold themselves to a standard. They are not performing for an audience, but they are absolutely accountable to their own values. And those values include, how do my words and actions land on the people around me? When you say I don't care what anyone thinks as a defense against feedback, as a shield against accountability, as a way to avoid the discomfort of examining yourself, you are not free. You are defended. And a defended person is a person who has stopped growing. Marcus Aurelius cared about how he governed. Not because he needed public approval, but because his own standards demanded it. He wrote privately about his failures and shortcomings, things no one would ever see. Because his audience was not the public. His audience was his own conscience. That is genuine freedom. Not indifference, but an inner standard so strong that external approval becomes unnecessary. Say instead, I care deeply about my values, and I hold myself accountable to them regardless of who is watching. That is the statement of a person with real character. The third thing. They started it. Somewhere around the age of 6, most of us learned this phrase. And somewhere around that same age, we should have been gently taught to leave it behind. But many of us didn't. And so we carry it, polished up, dressed in more sophisticated language, but fundamentally the same. They started it. I was just reacting. My behavior is not my responsibility because someone else's behavior came first. The Stoics were uncompromising on this point. Your response is always yours. Always. The actions of another person do not own your reaction. They may trigger it. They may make it more difficult to manage. But they do not cause it. You cause it, by the quality of your inner work, by the strength of your self-governance, by what you have chosen to practice. Seneca wrote, "A sword never kills anybody, it is a tool in the killer's hand." And in the same way, no one's words, no one's actions, no one's provocation makes you respond in any particular way. You choose. Now, this is not a philosophy that lets other people off the hook. It is not saying that what they did was acceptable. It is not saying there are no victims and no perpetrators. What it is saying is, regardless of what they did, you are still responsible for what you do with it. Because here is what the blame game costs you. Every time you point outward to explain your behavior, you are pointing away from the only place where change is possible, inward. You cannot improve your response next time if this time's response was their fault. You cannot become more than you are while you are busy explaining why your current limitations are justified by what someone else did. People of deep character take ownership. Not as punishment. Not as self-flagellation. But as the clearest possible acknowledgement. I am the only author of my responses, and that authorship is something I take seriously. The fourth thing. I already know that. Few phrases close a mind faster than this one. And it is particularly insidious because it is so often said by people who genuinely believe they are intelligent, curious, and open. I already know that. Watch for it in your own conversations. Notice when it comes up. Notice what it is protecting. Because that is the real question. What are you protecting when you say this? Usually, it is one of two things. Either your ego, the need to appear knowledgeable, to not be caught not knowing something. Or your comfort, the deep human resistance to information that would require you to change something about how you think or live. The Stoics had a name for the opposite of this phrase. They called it beginner's mind, though they expressed it differently. The idea that wisdom begins not with knowing but with the recognition of how little you know. Socrates, the intellectual ancestor of the Stoics, famously said that the only true wisdom is knowing that you know nothing. He did not mean that knowledge is impossible. He meant that genuine wisdom requires holding your current understanding lightly, as provisional, as incomplete. When you say I already know that, you are not demonstrating intelligence. You are demonstrating rigidity. The most learned people in history, the people who continued to grow until the very end of their lives, are universally described as curious, humble, deeply interested in what they did not yet understand. They asked more questions than they answered. They listened more than they spoke. They treated every conversation as an opportunity to encounter something they had not yet considered. That posture, open, curious, humble, is the posture of a person whose character is still alive and growing. I already know that is the posture of a person whose growth has quietly stopped, even if they haven't noticed yet. The fifth thing. I could have done that. This is one of the quiet poisons of character, spoken by people watching others succeed at things they themselves never attempted. I could have done that. Maybe you could have. Maybe the skills were there. Maybe the opportunity was available. But you didn't. And between could have and did is the entire distance between who you are and who you wish you were. The Stoics had no patience for this particular habit of mind, not because they were harsh, but because they understood exactly what it does to a person. Every time you say I could have done that, you are taking a small credit you did not earn. You are borrowing the identity of the achiever without paying the cost the achiever paid. You are defending your ego from the discomfort of not having done the thing, by telling yourself that the thing was easy enough that it wouldn't have been impressive for you anyway. It is envy dressed as criticism. It is insecurity dressed as confidence. And it damages your character in a very specific way. It trains you to be a spectator of life while believing yourself to be a participant. People of genuine character respond to others' success differently. They ask, what did this person do that I can learn from? What cost did they pay that I am not yet willing to pay? What does their achievement reveal about where I need to grow? They use other people's success as a mirror, not as a target. Because here is the truth the ego does not want to hear. The person who did the thing, did the thing. The difficulty was real. The sacrifice was real. The risk was real. And they showed up anyway. Respect that. Let it challenge you. Let it pull you forward. And then go do your own thing, the one that only you can do. That is the response of a person with character. Not I could have done that, but I am going to do mine. The sixth thing. I just want to be honest, before saying something unkind. This one requires real care. Because on the surface, it sounds like a virtue. Honesty is a virtue. Genuine honesty, the willingness to tell a difficult truth with care, at the right time, to the right person, for the right reason, is one of the highest expressions of respect. But there is a thing that masquerades as honesty. And wise people learn to recognize it, particularly in themselves. It sounds like this. I'm just being honest. Not to be mean, but I just want to give you real feedback. And then what follows is not a difficult truth offered with genuine care. It is a wound wrapped in the permission slip of honesty. The tell is always in the motivation. Real honesty is uncomfortable for the person saying it. It costs something. The relationship might be strained, the person might react badly, you might be wrong. Real honesty is delivered with care precisely because the speaker understands the weight of it. Cruelty disguised as honesty is easy. It feels righteous. It feels cleansing. You get to say the cutting thing and walk away feeling virtuous because you told the truth. But you didn't. You used truth as a weapon. And that is not honesty, it is aggression with better PR. The Stoics value truth above almost everything. But they paired it inseparably with wisdom, the judgment to know when to speak, how to speak, and what purpose the speaking truly serves. Before you invoke honesty, ask yourself, who does this serve? If your honest statement serves only your need to say it, if it provides no practical value to the person receiving it, if it changes nothing that can be changed, if it simply releases something you needed to express, that is not honesty. That is release at someone else's expense. Real honesty says hard things gently, and only when they can genuinely help. Everything else is just cruelty looking for a disguise. The final thing. I could never forgive that. This last one may be the most important of all. And it is the one most likely to be met with resistance. Because when you have been genuinely wrong, when someone has betrayed you in a real way, hurt you in a deep way, broken something that cannot be fully repaired, the statement I could never forgive that feels not just justified, but righteous. It feels like loyalty to your own pain. Like a refusal to minimize what happened. Like a form of self-respect. But the Stoics, and Marcus Aurelius in particular, saw forgiveness from a completely different angle than most people understand it. They did not see forgiveness as something you give to the person who hurt you. They saw it as something you give to yourself. When you hold unforgiveness, when you carry the weight of that closed fist around a wound, you are not protecting yourself. You are imprisoning yourself. You are choosing to let the person who hurt you continue to live in your inner world, rent-free, long after they have left your life. You are letting them define the shape of your peace. Seneca said, "How much better to heal than seek revenge from injury." He wasn't speaking about the other person. He was speaking about you. The healing is for you. The peace is for you. The release is for you. Forgiveness does not mean the thing that happened was acceptable. It does not mean the person deserves your trust or your presence. It does not require reconciliation. It simply means, I am choosing to stop letting this take up space inside me that belongs to my own life. People of deep character understand that carrying unforgiveness is a form of self-harm. That the bitterness they have cultivated to punish the person who wronged them is eating them alive, and the other person, in many cases, is completely unbothered. You deserve better than that. You deserve to be free. And freedom, in this case, begins not with the other person changing, or apologizing, or suffering in the way you believe they should. It begins with you deciding, I am taking back the space this has occupied. I am choosing my own peace over my own resentment. That is not weakness. That is one of the most courageous things a human being can do. The deeper truth beneath all of it. When you look at everything we have walked through today, all of the phrases, all of the habits of language, there is a single root that feeds all of them. The fear of being ordinary. That's just how I am, is the fear of the effort required to be extraordinary. I don't care what anyone thinks, is often the fear of discovering that you do care, deeply, and that caring makes you vulnerable. They started it, is the fear of owning your own limitations. I already know that, is the fear of being seen not knowing. I could have done that, is the fear of your own unrealized potential. I'm just being honest, is sometimes the fear of sitting with something uncomfortable without releasing it onto someone else. I could never forgive that, is the fear that forgiving means forgetting, or that letting go means the thing didn't matter. Beneath every phrase that damages your character is a fear. And the antidote to every one of them is the same. The courage to be honest. Not with others, with yourself. The willingness to see yourself clearly, your patterns, your defenses, your avoidances, and to choose, one small decision at a time, to be something more. This is what the Stoics were pointing at. Not perfection. Not the elimination of difficulty. Not a life without fear. But a life where your words, your thoughts, and your actions are all pointed in the same direction, toward the person you genuinely want to become. That alignment, that integrity in the truest sense of the word, is what character actually is. And it is built, word by word, choice by choice, day by day. You already know this. You have always known this. The question is only whether you will choose it. You have stayed with this for a long time. And that alone tells me something about you. You are someone who takes their character seriously. Someone who understands that who you are matters, not just to the people around you, but to yourself. That is not common. That deserves to be honored. So let me leave you with this. You will say some of these things again. Perhaps tomorrow. Perhaps today. Because you are human, and humans have patterns, and patterns take time to change. But now you will hear yourself differently. You will catch the phrase as it forms, recognize what is underneath it, and face a choice you might not have faced before. That moment of recognition, that pause between the old habit and the new possibility, is everything. That is where character is built. Not in the dramatic moments. In those small, quiet, ordinary moments when no one is watching and you choose, one more time, to be the person you know you are capable of being. Go do that. If this video gave you something to carry, even one idea, even one phrase you will hear differently from now on, then I want to stay in your life. Subscribe to this channel. This is what we build here together. Every week, we go deep into Stoic wisdom, into the philosophy that has outlasted empires because it is simply, relentlessly true about what it means to be a human being trying to live well. There is so much more coming. Ideas that will challenge you, settle you, and pull you toward the best version of yourself. Subscribe. Share this with someone who values their character. Leave a comment below. I genuinely want to know which of these phrases hit closest to home for you. I will see you in the next one. Take care of yourself. Your character is worth every bit of this work.